Shoutin' Mr. Johnson. Women, we're always the ones holding it down, holding our families together, holding our men up, even when they're too damn broken to stand. My grass man's wife came to me one day and asked if she could cut my lawn. Said her husband was a traveling man, and we know what that means. These men ain't ever just on the road for work. They're out chasing their next hit, whether it's a rock or a woman. Thing is, he wasn't traveling anywhere at that moment. He was sitting in jail on failure to pay child support charges. This fool had a whole woman willing to take over his lawn care business, to keep the money flowing, holding it all together, while he was locked up for not taking care of his outside kids he made while married to her. And she had kids with him too. The only reason she was sticking around was the kids. That was plain to see. She was tired. You could see it on her face, hear it in the way her voice cracked just a little when she asked if she could take on his clients. Trying to hustle up her own money, trying to breathe. You know what I said? I said yes. So did at least 4 of my neighbors. Not out of pity, because I'd seen her in action. She knew her stuff better than most men in the game. But more than that, I said yes because she was like I had been. A woman with a man who wasn't worth her time. A woman looking for a door. And I knew that door. I'd kicked it open myself more than once. Sometimes we don't need a hero. We just need another woman to say, go ahead, baby, do what you gotta do. As women, we're taught we're supposed to love our man, protect him, stand by him. We're a team until we're not. Every relationship is going to have its ups and downs. That's life. The challenges are what shape the bond, what deepen the connection, but only if both people are willing to give some and take some. No compromise, then there's no need to consummate. No reason to call it a partnership. That ain't a union, that's a power struggle. If you're not willing to bend, don't even bother getting in a relationship. Stay single, baby. Ain't no shame in that. The truth is, nobody, and I mean nobody, is perfect. Not in any way, shape, form, or fashion. So don't come half-stepping with demands and no sacrifices. Love ain't about control. It's about connection. And if you can't meet in the middle, stay in your own lane. Just know that God already went before you to prepare a way for you, which leads me to my final destination. I met Reverend Johnson 20 years before he ever said a word directly to me. Back in 1989, I was a regular on his bus route, riding 2 buses and a train just to make it where I needed to be. And every time I stepped on his bus, there he was, steady talking about the Lord like the whole route was his pulpit. He didn't care who was listening, rain or shine, early morning or late evening. That man had a Bible verse for your ride and a prayer ready at the next stop. That stuck with me. Not his title. He wasn't a reverend yet, not officially, but his spirit. His words, the way he carried himself, it planted a seed. I didn't know it at the time, but God was already setting the stage. 20 years passed before we ever exchanged more than a glance, but I never forgot that man on the MARTA bus, planting faith on Fulton Street like he was sowing wheat in a field. In 1995, I was doing some alterations for Reverend Johnson. Back then, still Deacon Johnson to me. He'd been picking up the neighborhood kids from across the street and must have seen my door open. Next thing I know, he's knocking, standing there real polite, asking if it was okay to grab his alterations. What I didn't tell him right then was that the night before, I'd had a life-changing encounter at the infamous Chit Chat off Kendall Road. If you know, you know. And if you don't, stay the hell away from over there. Some places ain't for visiting. Some places are where the devil does open mic night. That day marked a turning point. A door was closing and another one, maybe one I'd ignored too long, was creaking open. And there stood Deacon Johnson, right on time. The night before, I was in Chit Chat nursing a Coke and seltzer, minded my business. First time in that club. Turned out to be the last, too. This man walks up trying to make small talk. And all of a sudden, clear as day, I hear the Holy Spirit say, "Get out of here." I looked around and asked my friends, did anybody hear that? They said no. Again, louder this time, more urgent. Get out of here now. I ignored it. There's a saying, if you don't hear Moses, you will hear God. And this time, it hit like thunder in my chest. In the name of Jesus, get out of here now. Yeah, just like in Amityville Horror. But this ain't the movies, baby. I hightailed it right the hell out of there, like I had fire shut up in my bones. I walked straight down Kendall Road, kept going to Memorial Drive, all the way to Ashby Street, feet blistered, heart pounding like a drum in a funeral procession. I finally stopped at a cab company, scraped together what I had, and got a ride back to my place on Marbet Avenue. The moment I got inside, I started gathering my clothes, pulling out church dresses, dusting off shoes, setting aside every distraction. I didn't just want to go to church. I had to go. My soul was on red alert. That night, I didn't just leave a club. I left behind the old me. My friend who was at the club with me called just before dawn and woke me up. "Priscilla!" she screamed hysterical. "I don't know who or what you heard, but as soon as you left, that man who was talking to you sat down in your chair. Moments later, his wife walked in yelling, 'I knew I'd find you here,' and blew that man's brains out right there at the bar. You got out just in time, girl." When Deacon Johnson popped by to get his alterations, I still had on that hot pink two-piece outfit I made for going out the night before. Hair still curled, makeup smudged from the night and the tears that followed. I had fallen asleep amidst the dress search. "I know you don't normally take customers today," he said gently, "but I was picking up the kids across the street and figured I'd grab my clothes." He paused, looked at me real close. "Are you okay?" He could tell I had been crying. "No," I said honestly, "I'm not. I need to go to church. I am about to walk down the street and stop at the first one I see. I need to get to Jesus." He nodded and didn't flinch. "Well, my car is full," he said, "but I can send one of our members back to get you." And guess what? He was a man of his word. I joined his church not long after that. From day one, I was embraced. I made all the church robes, worked in the kitchen cooking meals, folding napkins, serving plates. It was a small church, but it was full of hearts. We laughed together, prayed together, cried together. We were a family. He never said anything cross to me, nothing flirty, nothing crass or suggestive, just kindness, just respect. I soon found out he was married, and that was that. Boundaries were never crossed. He respected his marriage. We respected his marriage. 3 years after his wife passed from a terminal illness, we married. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't a scandal. It was quiet, grown, and earned. A foundation built on friendship, faith, and respect joined together in our pastor's home. We began dating privately for a while. On our first date, hell, I thought he was gay. He walked me to my door, pulled me in close, and I leaned in, lips all ready to receive. And this man kissed me on my forehead. My forehead. Then he smiled and said, "Have a blessed night." I stood there like, wait a minute now. I even put my hand up to check the backlash of my breath because why didn't you kiss these sexy lips, sir? He laughed, caught off guard, and asked, "What are you doing?" "I'm checking my breath to see why you missed my mouth," I sassed, hands still hovering my face. He got all choked up trying to explain himself, stuttering, I was just trying to be respectful. I want to get to know you, that's all." He was different. When he asked me to marry him, I burst into laughter. I knew he couldn't be serious. He hadn't even cracked my back yet. I didn't even realize he was into me like that. He wasn't the typical man. But that's exactly what I needed. Someone not like the others. We decided to get married, and we went to talk to the pastor. He sat down, laid it all out, and he gave us his blessing. But before we left, he looked me dead in my eyes and said, "Miss Priscilla, I want you to do me a favor." I nodded. "Don't leave him. He's a good man." And something about the way he said it made me pause. Because when a man of God tells you something like that, it hits you differently. He wasn't just talking about love. He was talking about commitment, about standing in the gap when life gets hard, about being a covering and not a storm. And I took that to heart. I love this man, and he loves me. I'm not going anywhere. Nobody can put me out because I know right here is where I'm supposed to be. Becoming Mrs. Deacon Johnson felt like a dream come true. The house he lived in was the same one he'd shared with his late wife. And you know what? That wasn't an issue for me. It was exactly what I had prayed to God for. This was the house of my dreams. And for me, just for me, he had a sewing room built onto the back of the house. God was answering my prayers in real time. For the first time in my life, I was in a relationship where all the bills were taken care of. So I used my money to remodel the house. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to build something beautiful with the man I loved. My favorite part about dating him was his spontaneity. He was classy. He wasn't a dancer. He wasn't a heavy drinker. And he wasn't a smoker. But we still knew how to enjoy ourselves. I remember the first mayor's ball when I taught him to dance. He said, "You know I can't dance." I said, "Let me show you what to do. Usually the man leads, but come on, baby, follow me." "Put your hand on the small of my back," I coached. He blinked, "Huh?" "Slide it down a little more." I smiled. He moved his hand just above my hips. "Right there, baby. Ooh, yeah." He giggled. "Girl, you are so crazy. I can't wait to get you home." "Okay now," I whispered. "I'ma give you some puppy eyes and look up at you. Just move with me." I gently nudged him in whatever direction I wanted to go. His friends stood off to the side watching, saying, "Look at you, Red, you smooth." And he'd just smile and nod like he knew what he was doing. To date, we've attended 3 mayor's balls together. Yes, I taught my man how to dance with me. Hell, why not? Shirley Franklin, Kasim Reed, and Keisha Lance Bottoms. We were in the room with all of them. And y'all know Keisha's daddy is R&B legend Major Lance, right? Now listen, I know what you're thinking. He sounds like the perfect man. But you weren't really listening, were you? Ain't nobody perfect. You're going to find some things you don't like, some things you can't stand, some things you can't live without, and some things that keep changing. What you got to do is figure out what you love, what you can tolerate, and what you must absolutely eliminate. You learn from each other as you learn about each other. You grow together, and sometimes parts of you grow apart. But all that growing, all those experiences, they prepare you for what to expect in life.